How are we doing, everybody, and welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're talking about how to control the low point, which basically just means improve your quality of strike each and every time. Now, if you're new to the channel, you've also joined us in a series where basically I've been breaking the golf swing down and we are now starting to initiate the downswing. And today we're going to be talking about some pivotal things that give you the best sort of chance of getting a consistency with contact. Now, you would swing up towards the top of the backswing, you would find a way to turn correctly, and you'd find a way to put pressure in towards the ground. Again, if you're new to the channel, I've talked about these things in more detail previously. You would then start to open up the hips whilst the weight stays on the trail side. And then as you continue to keep rotating the hips, eventually, as you can start to see, what will happen is that as my pelvis keeps to rotate, my weight will shift from my right hand side to my left heel based on the rotational nature as to how I'm moving. How we control the low point really is going to be two things that we're going to focus on. The first thing is going to be the thing that I've already suggested, because if I now put both hands on the club and I swing up towards the top of my backswing, as I start to pull my pelvis back to square, you can start to see the way that it rotates all up my spine and my lead shoulder starts to make its journey back towards my kind of ankle line. It's really important that the idea of today is that you've got to try and trust this idea of rotating at the start of the downswing and not necessarily dragging the club down with the handle. I'm going to talk about what the elbow does and what the hands and arms are doing as we continue. But basically, if you want consistency in contact, the biggest problems that we tend to see are golfers that are desperate to hit the ball so they start to slide, or potentially not that many, but people that spin across the golf ball. Now, if you're somebody who's sliding, the problem is then you're not rotating. So if you're sliding, you're also encroaching the space between you and the ball, which is also given the term as an early hip extension. So this sort of transitional area, this area that I've been putting so much of my time in to try and help you guys understand it, is absolutely pivotal to your success to get to this point now. So the idea is that you would swing up towards the top. Whilst your hands and arms are still up there, you want to start rotating your lower body. As I start to rotate my lower body, you can see the way that my lead shoulder starts to make its way across back towards my ankle. Now, if you were to video your golf swing, which I would strongly suggest that you do, then basically if you drew a line vertically through your lead ankle, if you did anything like slide, you'd notice the way the shoulder would drop back and then you would start to struggle. And for today's benefit, I place this stick in the ground and just place my lead ankle alongside it. What you can start to see is as I start to open up my hips in this rotational movement so I stay behind the line, you can see the way my shoulder starts to progress closer towards the line. Now again, you couldn't use this because as you can start to see, it has to become something that you're visually doing, but the point is exactly the same. It's a really important move. It's going to help you get that stronger feeling for a separation, but it's also an important move anyway. We're going to come into the separational area in a little bit more detail soon, but if you're somebody who is struggling with your contact, then this is something that you have to start doing, is understanding that in that transition, you would swing up, you would start to open up the hips, and then basically the hips would start to stay in between your legs, but as you can see, my shoulder starts to make its way over towards that imaginary vertical line which is over my lead ankle. And then from this sort of position, what we're going to start talking about in the channel is how you continue to rotate, but how you also downcock the club so that you can find that low point each and every time. It's a pivotal movement. Without this, you're going to struggle. Slide, no good. Early hip extend, disaster. You're never going to get consistency, you're never going to strike the ball any better than you currently are unless you start to work on this. Now, when I meet people and I teach them, it's quite a funny feeling because, you know, normally most golfers get the problems on the backswing, but we've already talked about those. And then most golfers are trying to do things like immediately shift weight over towards the lead side. Again, I've been educating you that those things are wrong. But there's no doubt that if you're somebody who is laterally moved to try and find the low point of your golf swing, all of a sudden to try and rotate it will feel indifferent. But the results are kind of almost guaranteed. You know, if you can kind of just swing up towards the top and start to pull this lead hip back, it'll have a knock-on effect to all the rotation that's going on here. My lead shoulder will start to move its way over the golf ball. And like I said, from there, you are basically moving back into a central position over the ball based on rotation, not a lateral movement. Now the rotation is critical because what that will do is that will create space for us to be able to drive our arms in, which is going to be the point on the next video. I'm going to talk very much about the functionality on that trail elbow and that trail arm to help us drive to keep the club on plane, but also to drive so we can strike the golf ball. That's why if you're somebody who at impact knows that you look a bit chicken wingy or a little bit flippy, It's going to be really fundamentally from the lack of rotation in your golf swing. And to be honest with you, when we start talking about the elbow, loads of golfers that kind of send their swings into the channel or they email me love the idea of driving the elbow, but the reality is the elbow can only really come to fruition if you're not encroaching the space, which basically means, again, if you were videoing your swing, you know what to look on from a face-on perspective. But from a side-on perspective, if you're somebody who doesn't keep these hips back and you start to go this way, then all of a sudden there's no space to be able to drive your elbow in, hence the reason why you get inconsistency. So it's all about the rotational movement, right? Got some great little drills coming up as well about this sort of area, really important sort of drills. And obviously as we continue this little journey on, you're going to start to understand it more and more. I'm confident of that. The truth is, if you can understand it, then you're more likely going to be able to introduce the changes, which is possibly the reason why most golfers struggle, because you have the wrong misconception about what it is you're trying to do. Video your swings from face on. Start to understand that to initiate the downswing, you're going to rotate the hips. Try and understand that by rotating the hips, it actually activates this shoulder. Whilst you're doing that, try and keep your arms up there, because that's going to really help you out in that transition. We don't want to be pulling the arms down consciously as we start to initiate this downswing, because it will upset things like our ability to keep it on plane, and it's going to hinder your athleticism as well. Keep your arms up there, open up the hips, trust that that will help you find the low point. Video your golf swing. It might just surprise you in terms of how you feel it's working as opposed to actually what's happening. And I'll catch up with you guys again soon. Always appreciate a thumbs up, remember. If you're new to the channel, then consider pressing that subscribe button. If you're going to do that, then press the bell icon, because that means you'll receive notifications every time a new video comes out. And then also it's absolutely free to send swings into the channel for a free annotation. In the social media, links are in the description box below. I'll catch up with you guys soon.